Hello, Davison. Superintendent Kevin Brown coming to you with another edition of Brown's Blog. Last night, Governor Whitmer held a press conference, and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services announced that they were issuing restrictions, greater restrictions on gatherings, and also a mask mandate. And part of the new restrictions was the cancellation of face-to-face learning for our high school students. I made the very difficult decision last night to shut down all of the schools in the Davison district. And I want to just talk a little bit and explain our rationale for doing that. We have really been struggling with staffing in our buildings. Most people may not realize that with the number of cases of COVID-19 increasing dramatically and the number of people required to quarantine because they've been close contacts of people diagnosed with COVID-19 has really increased dramatically. It's gone through the roof. And it's become very, very difficult for us to maintain adequate staffing in our buildings. Just so that everybody understands how that works, if I'm diagnosed as COVID positive, I'm required to quarantine or self-isolate for 10 days and be symptom-free for 24 hours before I can return to work or school. Conversely, if I am a close contact of someone who is COVID positive, I have to quarantine for 14 days because the virus can have up to a 14-day incubation period before we start seeing symptoms. And it doesn't matter if I test negative. That does not eliminate or end my quarantine, because I could test negative one day and positive the next. So if I'm a close contact of somebody with COVID-19, I have to quarantine for 14 days. Now, it gets even worse if I have a COVID-19 person in my household, because if I have a COVID-19 person in the household, then that individual has to quarantine for the 10 days, be symptom-free for 24 hours. But my quarantine as a close contact of a household member doesn't begin until that 10-day quarantine of the COVID-19 positive person ends. So now we're talking about 24 days. And with the number of cases increasing like it is, we're seeing more and more people who are close contacts having to quarantine for 14 or up to 24 days. And a lot of those people, unfortunately, are staff members, which really makes it challenging to try to operate our schools. So I made the very difficult decision to shut down all of our schools, pre-K through 12th grade, beginning on Wednesday, with the hopes of resuming face-to-face instruction on December 9th. And I want to be very, very clear. I have been very outspoken and adamant about the importance of kids being in school. I believe wholeheartedly that the best and the safest place for our kids to be is in our school buildings. And I want to resume face-to-face instruction as soon as possible. So our plan is that we're going to take a pause. We're going to spend the next 3 weeks, which is a total of 13 school days, in virtual learning, with the hope that on December 9th, all of our kids that want to return to face-to-face instruction will have the opportunity to do that. And as a district, as a superintendent, I'm very committed to getting all of our kids back in school, for those that want to be back in school, as soon as possible. So if you look at our dashboard, which is posted on the front page, the main page of our website, what you're going to see is that the numbers have risen dramatically over the last couple of weeks. If we go back to the start of the school year, we had 7 weeks of face-to-face, in-person instruction, and we only had 24 confirmed COVID-19 cases. In the last 2 weeks, since returning from our first intersession break, our cases have risen. They've more than doubled. I think the last time I looked at the dashboard, we had 58 confirmed cases of COVID-19. And the other thing that you'll notice is that the number of quarantines is growing dramatically as well. So when we talk about the number of staff having to quarantine for 14 or up to 24 days, that's a real issue because every day we quarantine multiple staff members, and because of the length of those quarantines, that continues to just compound. That problem is compounding, and because there are so many cases and so many close contacts of COVID-19 people now, we're seeing that just continue to grow and grow exponentially, which is really the reason that we're having so much trouble staffing our buildings. But I just thought it was important to explain a little bit more than I could in the letter that we sent out last night about why we need to take this pause. And then lastly, I want to send a huge shout out to our football team for the big win over Grand Blanc and winning the district championship. It's very disappointing that they're no longer going to be able to play. Hopefully that tournament will be postponed rather than canceled, and they'll still have an opportunity at some point to play for another state championship. And as we approach Thanksgiving, I thought it would be a good idea just to identify some of the things that I personally am thankful for. I'm thankful that Davison is such a supportive community. We really do have more support from our parents and our community than I've seen just about anywhere else. I'm very thankful for our staff. Our staff has been working very, very hard. They're very committed, they're very dedicated, and they've been working very, very hard, not only to ensure that we can remain face-to-face with our students, but also to try and meet the needs of those students that are our online learners. And I'm also very, very thankful that we've had over 2 months of students in face-to-face learning. 2 months that a lot of schools haven't had, and I hope to resume that again, as I said earlier, as soon as possible. So hang in there. This is just a little bump in the road. We'll take a few weeks off. We'll get our staff back. We'll get through all these quarantines, and hopefully on December 9th, we'll be welcoming all of our kids back for face-to-face instruction once again. Thank you, Davison. Have a happy Thanksgiving.